Well, how does this general attitude get in there?
That's right.
How does it get in there?
You let it in.
How do you do that? What do you mean you let it
Subtly.
You buy
comes
into
in.
it, and it's also a little bit like your immune system. If your immune system is up, it's really easy to, not get sick. But when you're down, it's a lot easier to buy into it when it floods you.
in? Okay, buy into what?
That everything sucks.
You buy into these beliefs.
Right.
We buy into other beliefs, and we make judgments based on these beliefs that this is the way life is, and then we make these judgments that really have nothing to do with what God says is truth, and then we start going away from God.
Right.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
It's subtle, isn't it?
It's
That's it.
really, really
It's
simple.
little teeny decisions in our mind and in our attitude and in our heart that we make over time. We're going this way with God, things seem to go fine, and then something just little happens and then we turn like this, and then something else happens and we make another judgment based on this, and then we go this way, and then we go this way, and little by little by little. It's not the major decisions in life that determines who we are. It's the everyday decisions that we make in life based on what we think and we feel and we believe in our heart that determine who we really are. Isn't that right? It's not the big decisions, because the big decisions we normally pray about and actually may hear God on. But it's the little things, what we think about people, how we talk to people, what comes out of our mouths, what we believe, how we express ourselves. It's subtle.
Right.
Reminds me of the passage in Corinthians. Whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Eat or drink. Do we make our eating and what comes into our mouth and our drinking and the small decisions of life? I'm going to consume this double pecan pie because God's leading me here. Whether we eat or whether we drink or whatever we do, what if our lives would be skewed that direction? But we've let all sorts of other beliefs, it's like the song, Don't Stop Believing. In that song it says, living just to find emotion. I just want the certain feeling.
What did that say?
Living just to find emotion. Many people live for a certain feeling. They want a certain feeling in their relationships. They want a certain feeling at work. They want a certain feeling at church. They want a certain living just to find emotion. In that song it says, working hard to get my fill. I'm working hard so I can get this experience or this fill or this whatever in life.
Satisfaction.
Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. That's what it says right after the don't stop believing. Or this is in the song, took the midnight train going anywhere. When you're at the midnight of your life, I'd rather be doing anything than I am now. And we start making other decisions. The midnight train. The midnight train sounds like a train of escape to me. It's all that song. And then they have this little tag at the end. Don't stop believing. Don't stop believing in what? Don't stop believing in yourself? It doesn't say what not to stop believing in. It just says, don't stop believing. Just believe. Believe what? Luke chapter 1. Let's read this together. In the time of Herod, king of Judah, there was a priest named Zachariah, who belonged to the priestly division of Abijah. His wife Elizabeth was also a descendant of Aaron. Okay, so here, all the descendants of Aaron. Doesn't happen to be this Aaron. But we're talking about Aaron, who was Moses' brother. And it was understood all the descendants of Aaron were to be priests.
Right.
And Zechariah and his wife were also in that lineage, both of them. And by this time, there were scads of descendants of Aaron. There were so many descendants of Aaron that they had 24 different types of groups of Aaron, descendants of Aaron, that would serve on different occasions within the temple. And then since there were so many, they had to throw lots to see who would be the one that would actually go in to the Holy of Holies. And some people that were priests at that time never once in their whole lifetime went into the Holy of Holies because there were too many of them. And so you served, you did what you did. How do you like this next statement? Verse 6. Let's read together. Both of them were righteous in the sight of God, observing all the Lord's commands and decrees blamelessly. Let's just stop right there. How would you like to have that on your tombstone? Righteous in the sight of God. Blameless in all the Lord's commands and decrees. Wow, what a life.
That's right.
Righteous in the sight of God.
Yeah.
Blameless in everything that God would ask. They're doing whatever they have to do to follow God with all they understand how to do. I believe many of us here are trying. These were two that tried. How do you like this? After this, both of them were righteous in the sight of God, observing all the Lord's commands and blameless. How many know? Okay, here we are this morning. This is your life. You've given your life to Christ. You're trying to follow Him. You're doing everything that you understand how to follow Him, but things aren't quite right, are they? There's some inconsistencies in your life. There's some things that aren't fitting together. But they were childless because Elizabeth was not able to conceive. And they were both very old. In Bible times, if a couple is not able to conceive, you know what they called a woman back in those days? Barren. How does that sound? When you think of barren, what do you think of?
Desert places.
A desert where nothing grows. No vegetation. Barren. God forsaken. What do you do with that soil? What can you do in the desert? You go through it. That's about all you do. Let's just hang out. Let's just hang out in the desert for a while. Unless you're enthralled with the desert. But how about the desert place of your life? Such was the case. Couples who did not have a child felt abandoned by God. Outcast. There was no one to carry the family name anymore. Because it was understood. It was God who opened the womb and closed the womb. And it says that they were both what now?
Very
What does that mean?
old.
And what does that mean?
You have to ask
Well,
Dorothy.
I know. I'm just going to get into that. What does very old mean? I think in this passage it means older than most. Beyond the age of having children. I believe this is what it's referring to. Beyond the age of having children. And I think that's old, but very old. Now, my mother sat down with me one day when she was at our house, and she said, you know what, in my life I've found that there are 3 different olds. There's young old, there's middle old, and there's old old. And she said, young old is between 60 to 75. You basically do whatever you did before. You're young old. There's really not a whole lot of difference. But around 75 or so to around maybe 85, this is her experience, of course. She said that's middle old. You have to watch yourself more. You don't have quite the energy that you had before, but you can do quite a bit. But you can't go every day like you did before. And then for her, it was the closer she got to 90, and it really kicked in around 90. She said, that's old. And an old, you look out the window, and if there's any question there may be ice, you don't walk outside because you don't want to slip. You don't want to think about going. You don't have to anymore. You ask people to come over to pick you up, to take you somewhere. You don't have to drive anymore. Even though it was difficult when you're old to give up your driving privilege. Now, these people were very old. My estimation is that they were probably middle old. I don't think they were young old. I think they were middle old. What do you think they thought about their possibility of having children?
None. No. Wasn't happening.
They've given it up. It's not going to happen. How many of us experience that on the outside we're serving God, but on the inside we have an attitude towards God? On the inside it's not quite there. On the outside we'll do our best to do the right thing. But on the inside, there's some distance from God. Let's read again. Once, when Zechariah's division was on duty and he was serving as priest before God, he was chosen by lot, according to the custom of the priesthood, to go into the temple of the Lord and burn incense. Okay, so the lots were thrown. And it was understood that God determined the lot. This is the high point of his life. He's going to go into the Holy of Holies as the high priest. To be the go-between between God and the people, to offer the sacrifice. To do what the high priest is to do before the people. And when the time for the burning of incense came, all the assembled worshipers were praying outside. Okay, the time came. The incense, they had the incense that was burning, and the smoke was rising, and Zechariah went in. And when he was in there before the Lord, let's read together. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing at the right side of the altar of incense. When Zechariah saw him, he was startled and was gripped with fear. It was a major deal. He may have fell to his knees. I don't know what happened in there. He wasn't expecting that. He heard what other people saw in there and what it was like in there. He was never in there before. This is his first time. But the angel said to him, don't be afraid, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard. What do you think he's thinking? What prayer? What prayer? My prayer's been heard. I've stopped praying for a while. What do you mean, prayer? How many know that whenever you pray, God has all your prayers in a bottle? He remembers every one. Every one, every hope, every prayer, everything you've ever said to Him. He carries that with Him, and they're precious to Him. And how many of us know that God sometimes doesn't answer your prayer in your time?
Amen.
And if your prayer really doesn't have anything to do with His will, you don't want it anyway, right? If God would give us everything we prayed for, we'd have a miserable life.
Amen.
But He said, I have heard your prayer. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you are to call him John. What? How many have had dreams and thoughts about how your life was going to be? How you believe God wanted your life to be? And you gave up on that dream long ago. And you're not even sure if you want it anymore. Oh, I understand this. You're not even sure if you want it. Such was the case with me. I heard God called me in my spirit to be a pastor when I was 20 years old. And I did my best to pursue that, and all the doors were closed, and I got mad at God. You wanted me to do this? I don't know. And finally, when it went in my lap, I was mad. I don't want it now. But this is what you want from me. Eventually I saw myself in the mirror that this is the time when God's going to give it to me, because it's not about me and what I want anymore. I'm really going to do it because God wants it now. And that's really He really wants in us. He doesn't want us to be enthralled with His gifts. He wants us to be enthralled with Him, the giver, not the stuff.
That's right.
You're going to call him John. And what does John mean? What does John mean?
God is gracious.
God's gracious. God's been gracious to him. He will be a joy and delight to you. Well, I would hope so, man. We're old, man. I don't want some weird, rebellious kid running around, He's going to be a joy to you and a delight to you. He'll renew your youth like an eagle. And many will rejoice because of his birth. For he will be great in the sight of the Lord. He is never to take wine or fermented drink, and he will be filled with the Holy Spirit even before he's born. This is a special kid. God sent the prophet among all prophets before Jesus came to prepare the soil for Jesus. He sent a prophet. This is after 400 years of silence in Israel. John came on the scene to prepare the way. And he will bring back many of the people of Israel to the Lord their God. He's going to have an effect. What's that saying? There are a lot of people that are not serving God right now. There are a lot of God's people that are not with God. And how many know that sometimes in order to jar us to the right spot, we got to have someone that's going to be in our face and tell us the truth. That's what a prophet is. Isn't that right? That's what a prophet is. A prophet is one that speaks the truth with God's love and power. And he will go on before the Lord in the spirit and the power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. He will turn the hearts. He will turn the hearts of God's children to him, and he's going to get in the ground level of this generation. That's just in the houses of the parents. People's hearts are going to turn. And make ready a people prepared for the Lord. What a prophecy. There you are in there. I don't know how long it normally is in there. But I think it took longer than normal. Here's this angel shows up. He doesn't know what quite to say, and he's afraid and all this. He gets this prophecy in there about this son he's going to have. Here's Zechariah. I got to be sure of this. I'm an old man. My wife is well along in years. How do you like this? What the angel says, Gabriel. The angel said to him, I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I've been sent to speak to you and to tell you the good news. It appears to me that Gabriel wasn't prepared for him to say, I don't know, I can't be sure of this. I'm not sure. I'm along here, my wife's along here. I don't know. You don't understand who I am. I thought I was going to tell you about these prayers that were answered, and you'd jump up for joy, jump up and down. But you say, I don't know. I'm not sure. Is this really going to happen? And I've been sent by God. Do you know who I am? It's like UPS is coming to your door, and Publishers Clearinghouse is right there, and you've won the $10 million sweepstakes. They knock on your door.
Why never sent me for that?
They're like, I don't know. How can I be sure this is Hey, listen. You know who I am. You know what's going on here? You've been praying about this. You've been sending in them things for years. Well, I don't know. And now look what he says. Look what the angel says. And now, verse 20, you will be silent and not able to speak until the day this happens, because you did not believe my words, which will come true at their appointed time. So as soon as he left here, they knew. You can read it in Luke. They knew it took longer. But he couldn't tell anybody what happened. He could scrawl things on a piece of paper. That was about it. But he couldn't even talk to his wife. We know the story. What happened? They said, well, since you're not believing, you're not going to get a kid, That's not the case. You're the parents. You're going to be the dad. You're still going to have a kid, but you can't talk. Not until the child's born. He had a lot of quiet time between him and God, didn't he? How many know that our attitudes come out of our mouths?
That's all right.
Because John was growing inside of Elizabeth a fresh understanding of who really God was growing inside of Zechariah. And when it came to the day that he was going to be born, this or this? And he says, and Elizabeth said, John. And they said, well, Zechariah, what do you think? Well, it can't be that. He scrawled. This child will be called John. Child was born, and he lets out a prophecy. That's a beautiful prophecy. Over those 9 months of silence, God warmed his heart. Something happened to Zechariah. Some thoughts. The scar of an old wound of infertility created the inclination to disbelieve. Some of us are carrying wounds, old wounds. And because of that, it's hard for us to believe. It's hard. We struggle. We struggle to have a vital faith. Sometimes we prefer the safety of doubt over the risk of disappointment. It's just easier to go with doubt, isn't it? Because if I get disappointed one more time, what's going to happen to you? And so we just would rather hold on to our crappy judgments about life, about people, about God, about church, about this, right? Mm-hmm. About family, about men, about women, because we don't want to get disappointed again. God forbid. God disciplines those whom he loves. He loves those whom he disciplines. God disciplined Zechariah because he loved him. You know, the people that I correct the most are the ones that I really see God's potential in and love them. The ones that I correct the least are the ones that I probably don't have a real heart for and don't know them and don't see God's potential in them. There are certain people that along the way that I've corrected and tried to help out, and they say, why are you doing this with me? Why don't you do this with so-and-so? Because I see so much in you. God saw so much in Zechariah. So he corrected him. He disciplined him. How many know sometimes you can't get away with it? Other people can. But you can. How many know that? You don't want to get away with it. If you get away with it and nothing's ever done, are you God's child is the question. Then we should be afraid. If we just go on, do whatever, and get away with it, man. So what hinders you? What has caused you to pull back from trusting God? At times, why is it safer and easier for you to trust your doubts? Have you ever fully trusted God? Why or why not? Let's break it down.